afraid to reach my highest self because even now they say they are intimidated by me. Until I realized it was a shield. My greatness could ward off those not worthy of me. Rise.
Now we are in your amazing studio office, and you are getting, you're starting to get noticed more.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was the first big project?
First big project, that's hard to say because even with that, things have picked up traffic since, June, since the George Floyd murder and then subsequent protests and Black Lives Matter movements and amplifying Black voices. It became much more consistent. But I think my first big project was? Maybe my Today at Apple session kind of marked a turning point for me, just kind of believing in myself and realizing that companies were taking notice and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think I would say that's how.
Okay. So now how do you navigate it all? How do you remain grounded even in that everything's happening now?
Yeah. I still think that from the inside it's different than what you would expect. Looking in and just kind of seeing the posts and the tag and the artwork, it kind of feels wow, it just happened. But there's so much time that goes between discussing a project, deciding to take it on, doing the legal paperwork, signing NDAs and not being able to talk about it, going back and forth with edits and drafts and things like that by the time it comes out, you worked for it, and it's you're exhausted from working for it. So it just kind of feels this is the job, that I do. I remember being an artist and being mystified by people doing projects like this as though they're so lucky and it's magic, but it's just it's work.
So how do you manage the creative and the business side of things?
There was one point, the most of my career, where I was doing everything. I was answering emails, I was handling orders on my shop, I was shipping out things, I was dealing with customer service if something got lost or broken or whatever. I was taking phone calls and taking meetings and then actually having to create and actually having to meet deadlines and then doing projects with friends for fun or for favors and things like that. So now it's at a point where I don't really take the calls and the emails anymore. My manager does that, and my mom handles my shop. So I kind of just focus on getting the art done and my own ideas and stuff like that. But I still kind of I see everything coming in and I can see the emails. So it can still get kind of stressful. Knowing that they're asking for certain things or that they're going back and forth with my manager or they're not agreeing, just little things like that can make me feel anxiety, but much better now that I don't have to do every single thing.
What is the biggest sacrifice to be where you are today?
Ignorance. Just ignorance of everything that was brewing inside me that I could have, taken for granted and just been this is the way that I am and this is the way I'm always going to be, and just having to face those things head on and rip apart everything I needed to and cry and, release all of those habits and mindsets that weren't serving me, I think was the hardest.
What was a setback you faced and then, you actually realized it was an advantage?
So many. I think that at every stage there's been something that led to some type of uncertainty or felt like a failure that ended up being for my benefit. Not going to Europe most recently felt like a setback, but now I'm able to do everything that I wasn't going to be able to do. I had closed my shop because I was going to be moving, and my print sales have exploded, and it was really sad to close it, but I was how am I going to ship prints on a new place, blah blah.
Yeah.
So it's now I get to keep everything. I get to work with clients from Europe, but also still have my family and also keep my shop open and explore opportunities and stay with so just that's one of them. Quitting teaching was uncertain, and I remember quitting teaching, I didn't quit and dive into freelance. I took another job, and when that job didn't work out, I was a creative director, and I was clashing with the bosses or whatever. They couldn't really manage a creative, and that kind of felt like a setback, and it just kind of like took me trusting the journey. But there were sacrifices. Like I couldn't travel that whole year. I couldn't eat out like I was eating out. I couldn't shop like I had shopped. Like I had to really discipline myself to make the dream work. And I can say the same thing for basically every stage.
Would you change anything?
Not a thing.
Really?
Not a thing. I wouldn't do anything sooner. I wouldn't go a different route. I think everything happened for a reason and the right time and gave me the right lessons.
So what are some of the struggles that you face today?
Today, I would say having time for myself and having true rest time and true creative time as things wind down, you know, for like the holiday season. I don't know if that'll be dated when you share the interview, but as things wind down for the holidays and I'm like not taking any more clients and I'm not on like deadlines of having to be at this meeting and this checkpoint, I'm feeling the creativity come back and like what it felt like to be inspired and do personal work, and just kind of remembering how I don't have time for that when it's like one project after the other and it's like one big thing. It's like you don't really have time to be creative. Like you're just following this creative brief and trying to come with this outcome that someone wants, but it's not a lot of time to just think about like how I want to grow as an artist and what type of work I want to put out.
You talk about the importance of paying it forward. You talk about it in your book, and you talk about it in articles and different things. And it's very hard, especially like not only like paying it forward, but you talk about it paying it forward without expectation. Mm-hmm. And you're just doing it. It doesn't matter if the person says thank you or not. How did you get to that mentality, and how do you get to maintain that mentality? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes you can just, I feel like I can do something like, dang, you didn't even say thank you, like what? Mm-hmm. So how do you do that?
I think that that type of like energetic feeling takes a toll on your well-being, your happiness, and your ability to just kind of like flow freely into your purpose. When you're keeping note of who says thank you, who says congratulations, who bought something from you, all of those things keep you from focusing on the people who are supporting and the people who are saying thank you and the people who are showing up. And I always want to be in the space where I am giving my love and attention to the things that are serving me and giving myself space to grow versus focusing on who's not able to like reciprocate what I can give them. And that's part of it, but it's also kind of like understanding that you don't do it for them. Yeah. Well, you do it for them, but like you do it for yourself and for the chance that you're going to teach them something that they haven't felt. You know, like a lot of times when people are angry or when people are spiteful or envious, it's because they're in a space of lack, or because they've been wronged or they're going through something. So at the end of the day, it's like, what does it take from you to be kind, just with no strings attached, and teach them that there are people in this world that are not going to expect something in return, and that there is like happiness and kindness and all of those things. I think kind of like help us build a society that is more positive and more loving.
As we were talking about like the importance of paying it forward, what are some resources that contributed to your journey?
My friends talking to me, people who are farther along in their art careers or freelancing journeys, like sharing resources, sharing opportunities. And that's kind of why I feel that way, because each time like someone would come to me back when I was making logos saying like, hey, this person referred you to me, and it would be someone else that also creates and could have taken the job. It could have been greedy, could have hoarded, and even if they're busy, you can always say, yeah, I'll take one more rather than giving it to somebody else. And I would always think about that and just kind of like, wow, like I want to do that for someone else. And just kind of like knowing that my parents had done it. My parents also dabbled in like creative careers, and knowing that it's possible is important, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about like showing other people that it's possible. And that's something that I would tell my students' parents at open house, that yes, I'm the art teacher, yes, this is an elective, but we also have to understand that not everyone's built for reading and not everyone's built for test taking, and some of them will make millions of dollars drawing and creating video games and creating posters for movies and, you know, shooting campaigns. Like there's just so much that we undermine, and we tell kids that like they can't do something because it's not structured, and it stifles them when they're frustrated and when like language arts isn't going right, but they're good at art, but it's like I can't take art seriously because it's not possible, you know. So I always wanted them to know, like the same way that I knew from seeing it from my parents, seeing it from friends, seeing it from family, that you can build a career from your passion.
So what would you tell someone looking up to you right now, you know, seeing all the success and all, everything that's happening right now, just looking up to like your art or who you are, what would you say to that person?
That it's a process, and it starts with knowing yourself and loving yourself, and that's at the core of it all. Like every question I think people ask me, I try to answer it practically, because I don't like leaving questions unanswered. But when it comes to like basic things that people will ask, like how do you grow your social media, how, you know, it all stems from knowing who you are and who you want to project yourself to be to the world, and how you want to be of service, and it starts there. So how you grow your social media, well, how can you be more true to yourself? How can you turn that into a brand? Sounds like monetizing your personality, but pretty much like what about yourself that you love can you share with others, rather than it feeling like a gimmick of like, how do I grow followers, how do I grow likes? It comes back to you being who you want to be and loving that person and that radiating.